What's up, guys? Welcome to Among the Fence. My name is Aaron. As you can see, I got my request board back up, and finally I wrote some things on it, some future reviews I'm going to be doing. So if you have anything you want me to review, please feel free to leave a comment below letting me know what it is. If you don't see it on here, trust me, it's on some list somewhere in my life, and it will eventually make it onto the request board. And if you do that, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon. That way you get notified when I do upload it. That way you don't miss out on your requested review. But in the meantime, today we're going to be checking out the new Rise Against album, Nowhere Generation. The punk rock band from Chicago has come out with their 9th studio album. It's hard to believe that these guys have been around since 1999. I think the first time I heard them, I was in like 7th grade or something. It was like 2000, 2001, somewhere around there. And I was blown away by their sound, from their guitar riffs to the vocal performances. The vocals are probably what got me hooked on Rise Against, like right out the gate. And back then I didn't really understand how big and impactful this band was really going to be. I mean, on June 4th, when this album came out, Chicago announced that day as Rise Against Day, like kind of giving them some kind of like award recognition certificate thing, because they've done so much with like a lot of different stuff, from human rights, animal rights, all kinds of different things. They've done a lot of like positive things, and they've spoken out against a lot of stuff. I mean, it's a pretty big band. I can't think of any other bands that have a day named after them. And normally when I talk about an album, I try and take songs that kind of relate to each other, or I can kind of link them up sound-wise and group them together and give examples of what they are in a way. But for this album, I'm just going to kind of go straight through it. But it's going to be broken up into the first half and the last half of this album. And for those of you who have listened to this album, you'll probably understand why. The first song on this album is called The Numbers. It's got like a chimey guitar kind of intro that turns into a classic Rise Against riff. It's got a really solid melody. That's another thing this band is pretty good for, is coming up with like little melodies, especially like lead guitar licks and stuff like that. The drums are pretty heavy. The vocals and the verse is absolutely fantastic. There's tons of presence and authority in this chorus. It's super catchy, good hooks. Another thing the band is known to do. The bridge is kind of intimate and smooth. It has a transition into a very, very powerful pre-chorus, which I enjoyed probably the most out of the entire song. It's got like cool horse training references, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if one of the guys recently took up like horseback riding or something, but there's a lot of horse references that kind of relate to political things. The second song, Sudden Urge, has this super groovy riff with a melody that's just kind of decent this time. The lyrics remind me a little bit of Prayer of the Refugee, just not nearly as good, considering that's probably like one of their best songs, most listened to songs, I would say. The vocal layering in this song sounds pretty good, but the chorus falls flat. It's a little lame. The best part about the song musically is probably the verses, but overall the song is just really cliche, which leads us into the next song, Nowhere Generation, which is the title track. Again, has like a signature powerful vocals with the electric guitar being strummed in the background. It's something Rise Against has done a lot of times in the past. The verse is like a musical skeleton of what the chorus is. And the chorus is, it's relatable and it's catchy and it has a decent hook, but it's missing something. Like, this is what listening to Rise Against is supposed to be all about, but at the same time, it's just kind of missing its inspiration. Talking to Ourselves is probably the most punk song on this album, maybe dare I say even a little pop punk, specifically in like the chord progression. I didn't like the thick, bassy undertones and just the tone of the bass guitar in the song. It stands out quite a bit more. The chorus is trying to get you to sing along. The lyrics are like almost having a conversation, though. It does fit pretty perfectly into the times that we're in, specifically like the protests and kind of standing up for yourself and what's right. The bridge sounds fantastic. Even though I didn't really enjoy this song all that much, it does have a little bit of a punk charm to it, which kind of drew me into it a little bit more. The next song, Broken Dreams Inc., is kind of another Rise Against classic sounding song. It's got like this unexpected lead guitar part in the intro. The verse, it's kind of lacking, and the chorus is not climactic at all. The guitar solo is kind of neat. The lyrics are a little cheesy. I mean, the build-up going into the bridge is the best part. It's absolutely, it's fabulous, and it lasts for maybe 15 seconds, give or take. And despite all of its flaws, it still is just kind of a decent song, but doesn't stand out all that much. Again, kind of uninspiring. As we get closer to the middle with the 6th song, Forfeit, things start to kind of mix it up a little bit more. This is like their acoustic ballady sad song, and lyrically this song is like the best friend that won't ever give up on you, and they're always there, and they just kind of won't go away, I guess. The lyrics have good imagery, but musically the song, it falls flat. It's very melodramatic. It feels like like they're just trying too hard, and this is really sad because this is something that Rise Against is pretty good at. I mean, acoustic songs are a little hard for pop punk bands or punk rock bands to get away with, just because they bring all this energy to the other songs, and when they die out and they get kind of slower songs, they kind of lose it a little bit. But Rise Against, they've never really had that problem before. This Forfeit just doesn't hit that hard. Like when you look at a song like Swing Life Away, which arguably is one of their best songs ever, especially like acoustic songs, and even though it's on a pedestal, it's not to say that all the other acoustic songs don't live up to the hype as well, because they've done other amazingly good acoustic songs. But this song is one that I was looking forward to, and it really let me down. This is where the album takes a turn for the better with the 7th song, Monarch. It's got a really aggressive riff that carries into the verse. The cadence, musically and vocally, kind of leaves you in suspense a little bit. The chorus has a really good build-up, and it's got tons of presence with woes in the background. Generally, I'm not really that big of a fan of having woes, just because I feel like it's kind of a cliche way of making your song sound more epic. But in this case, it kind of works, and it's not really overdone. The solo is simple, but yet effective. The bridge is chunky. It sounds so good, and I wasn't expecting it. And I think because of that, it makes it hit so much harder, just the heaviness that it brings. And now this brings me to like one of the hardest parts of this album, is trying to figure out which song is probably my favorite. And these last like 4 or 5 songs is really tough, especially with the 8th song, Sounds Like, which has a really sick, groovy bass line in the verse, a powerful chorus that really just demands your attention, and it oozes attitude and angst. This is like one of the best parts about Rise Against. It's all in the song. I mean, even though it's aggressive and it's got tons of attitude, it's in your face, it's not afraid to show its soft parts too, and it does it really well. I would say that Sounds Like is probably the best representation of Rise Against's evolution so far that they've had. Sooner or Later has some pretty dope drums, and again, a nice bass line, and maybe a piano, it might sound like. It's got great emotion. The chorus feels a little weak. The lyrics are like a little lazy. The drums at first were easily like this song's saving grace, and the first time I listened to this song, I was like, oh no, they did good on 2 songs and now they completely dropped the ball. But what they were doing is they're just playing low, you know, like letting you think that. And then all of a sudden the bridge comes in, and it's like a freaking explosion of energy with vocals that are screaming and they're in your face, and the guitar riff finally comes in and takes over the whole song. I mean, I wanted to dislike this song the first time I listened to it, and then every time after that I knew what to expect, and I couldn't wait for it. And again, it just keeps getting better and better as this album goes on. Middle of a Dream is another punk rock inspired kind of song, especially with like the riff, and it's got some really fat drums and tons of bass, specifically in the chorus, which to me made it a little bit more memorable, because there's not really a whole lot that really sticks out in this song specifically, but the thick bassiness, it makes it thump pretty hard. It makes you kind of start nodding your head a little bit. And this song has a lot of drive to it, and the bridge has really good melody. The vocals are great, and even though nothing stands out that much about this song, it's such a good song anyways. The last song, Rules of Play, is a little bit more unique. It starts out with just a kick drum and a rhythm guitar, and it stands out a little bit more from the rest of the songs in this aspect. The lyrics are pretty good, really well written, very relatable, and pretty creative at the same time. I really like the imagery and the different metaphors that are used. The bridge has a strong impact, but this felt like the weaker of the songs in the last half of the album. It still is a good song. It just leaves you kind of unsatisfied, specifically for a closing song. It doesn't have, it just doesn't feel like it's finished all the way. It kind of leaves you hanging. Once it's over, you're like, that's it. It's done now. I enjoyed Nowhere Generation not as much as I was hoping I would, but more than I thought that I would. I was hoping I would love. I was hoping to love this album because Rise Against is one of my favorite bands, if not probably my favorite band throughout like all of high school and probably up until I was like 25 or something like that. These guys were it. I listened to all their music all the time. I was obsessed with them. So when I heard they were coming out with a new album, I was pretty excited for it, but I was also just really hoping they wouldn't let me down and make me sad, which I gotta say that they didn't. This song does have a lot of really cool stuff to it. Sure, the first half of this album, it isn't really like that great, but at the same time, you don't hate the songs. They're just not really that catchy. They're not that inspiring. They don't have a lot of playability to them. You don't want to go back and listen to them a lot. But like the last like 5 or 6 songs on this album, even some people might like Forfeit, the slow acoustic little ballad thing that they have on there. Those songs are phenomenal as far as what Rise Against is known to do, and as far as punk rock is. I mean, that's it. It doesn't get more perfect than the last half of this album. But even Nowhere Generation as a whole doesn't have a whole lot of musical diversity throughout it. Like there's not a whole lot of different characteristics that stand out to you from song to song. Sure, there might be something that catches your attention for a little bit, maybe like a pre-chorus or a bridge sounds really good, or you really like the vocals in this one section of the song, and it stands out a little bit more than the rest maybe, but nothing is like really just makes you scream like I love this song all the way through. There's just certain sections of songs that really stand out. Even though it stands out really well, the whole song isn't like an absolute killer and a winner, at least in my book, from what I'm used to hearing from these guys. And as you listen to this album, you're also very much aware that you're listening to a Rise Against album. They're still playing the same song that they've been playing for a very long time. I realize that they just got an award, or they got a day like named after them and dedicated to them for all of like the political stuff that they've done and animal rights stuff and human rights and being very open and spoken about different issues and things. But at the same time, we've been listening to all these issues since 1999, and yeah, you can. It's kind of dated itself in a way just for this band. Sure, the issues they're talking about currently are new and fresh and problems that we're currently living in, but at the same time, it's just kind of like this. It all feels the same in a way. So with all that said, I got to give Nowhere Generation by Rise Against a 6.8 out of 10. But I want to know what you guys think. I'm sure a lot of people are going to hate me. A lot of people probably love this album, think it's the greatest thing ever. Surprisingly, a lot of the people I've talked to have kind of agreed with me that the last half of this album is really strong. And admittedly, first like 2 or 3 times I listened to it, I didn't really feel that. It all felt kind of flat to me and nothing really stood out whatsoever. But around like the 4th or 5th time I listened to it, and I was really paying attention to it, not like playing video games or driving or anything, that's when it started to become apparent just how great the last half of this album is. And I feel like the last half of this album really saves the whole thing. So yeah, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what you thought and what you would rate it. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a like. If you didn't enjoy it, feel free to give me a dislike, but at the same time, let me know why. Why do you disagree with me? Is there something that I missed? Is there something that you just enjoy more than maybe what I enjoyed? Am I just not getting something? Maybe the first half of this album is absolutely killer and I'm just dumb. Yeah, go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know why. And at the same time, feel free to leave a request for Request Wednesday and subscribe and ring the bell icon. That way you don't miss out on any of my future uploads. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day or night, whenever you happen to be watching this. And I will talk to you next time.
I was trying, ignorant, kid relying on